Hello and welcome back to the Collapse Experiment. Got another article for you today. This one, Gen X people like me grew up on MTV. I didn't have MTV. Didn't have cable. And mistrust. And now we're just suspicious of everything. Well, yeah, if you've been paying attention, you should be suspicious of everything. Only time will tell if Gen X can break free from the constant flight or fight. Isn't it fight or flight? Flight or fight lifestyle that has left us running on empty? Pretty sure it's fight or flight. Anyways, so this is by Luna Verity. Now, Luna, what does Luna have to say? Editor's note, this is part of a Your Tango's opinion section where individual authors can provide their varying perspectives for wide-ranging political, social, and personal commentary on issues. There's an issue? There's an issue with Gen X. Let's find out what it is. Have you ever noticed that a lot of comedy pieces and memes about Gen X portray them as pessimists who are all doom and gloom? As a member of Gen X, I often find myself nodding in agreement with these jokes and memes as I could relate to them on a personal level. Let's continue. I also noticed a frequent pattern among other Gen Xers who also seemed able to identify with the barrage of pessimistic themed Gen X memes and jokes. There's a universal vibe that most Gen Z people like me seem to share. Oh wait, is this a link to a strong inability to feel optimism? Okay, is this part of the article? Over the years, I often find myself struggling to see the light at the end of the tunnel, so to speak. I noticed that even when things were going well for me, I felt as though I could not let my guard down, trust anything positive that happened in my life. I was essentially always waiting for the other shoe to drop, and I never truly understood why. I could have written this. As I begin to look into this further and speak to other Gen X members, this seemed to be something many had in common. It was as though we were so accustomed to negatives in our lives that we could not trust when good things were happening. Yes. Even when reading Gen X group forums, the general tone is very pessimistic and lacking optimism. Are you not keeping up with the news and shit? Where have you been the last 4 years, the last 20, 25 years? Good God. I began to wonder what may have been contributing factors to this curse of the pessimism with Gen X, and I found several possible elements that may have led to this generational hex. Ooh, I wonder what they're going to find. These components include the movies and music we grew up with, the home situations we were exposed to, and the general societal issues our generation faced from our youth. First, let's look at the movies Gen X grew up with. With that, may have programmed this negativity. Some movies I covered previously in my piece as Gen X stuck in fight or flight. Oh, they got it right this time. Are part of the problem, such as Watership Down. I've never actually seen that. Dead Poets Society. That I have seen. And My Girl. None of these I've seen. Dead Poets Society, I might have seen it in the last 10 years or so. Watership Down, never watched it. My Girl, I was a kid. These movies portray themes of nonstop struggle, failing even when you fight for what you believe in, and when everything seems to be going well, something bad will happen and knock you down. 1999. You had Fight Club, you had American Beauty, Office Space. I mean, why these movies were picked, I don't know. But those movies in particular, at a time where my generation was, and I'm at the end of Gen X, so I would have been 20 years old when most of these movies came out. Meanwhile, the rest of Gen X is like in their 20s, possibly early 30s at that point, and these movies were catered to them. So why these movies were picked, I don't know. Several other movies further contributed to the lack of optimism that Gen Xers suffer from. Reality Bites, not a fan, was a huge movie for Gen Xers. I might have seen it. I'm not sure, actually. And while we would like to assume that the characters finally got their happy ending as the movie closed, it is more likely that this did not happen. Because that's the reality of like, there's happily ever after is like just a lazy ending to any story. This is the same with several other Gen X movies such as St. Elmo's Fire, never watched it, Boys in the Hood, never watched it, and Trainspotting. It's a movie about heroin. And yes, I have seen that one. We are locked in on the target. Are you ready to fire? Each of these Gen X movies seem to radiate the concept that no matter what there is no real happy ending. Well, with heroin, no. No, not really. In the end, you'll have to fight nonstop and likely still lose, as we still are for our generation. And if you let your guard down and trust when things are going well, something will come out of nowhere to break you down. The common trend in these movies is that even your nearest and most trusted friends in the end will betray you. If he's making an argument as to why Gen X should stay this way, he's doing a damn good job of it. They show relationships in such negative light, filled with drama, lies, and abusive behavior. Violence, drug abuse, and careless intimacy are also common themes in these movies. I stayed away from that scene. Careless intimacy wasn't really an option. Violence? Yeah, I know about violence. Yep. This likely contributed to the dark cloud that hovers over the heads of many Gen Xers. Another movie that defined Gen X and drilled the mindset that no one can be trusted and everything will always go wrong was the movie Kids. Never saw that either. From start to finish, this movie is dark and depressing and focuses on the negative lifestyles of young teenagers and their downfall from their bad choices. Okay, I'm guessing this was not an after-school special. These movies fed into the aspects of fear, distrust that have become defining traits for many members of Gen X. We struggled to trust and love because these movies showed us so many negative sides of love. We grew weary of love, and this led to a lot of self-sabotaging behaviors in our personal relationships, or as we like to refer to them as relationships. Even with our closest friends, many Gen Xers that I know struggle with staying in touch with those close friends because of fear of trusting others. No, not on this end. I have tried to stay in touch with several friends over the years that just casually go along the wayside or make it clear they don't want anything to do with me for political or personal reasons. Yeah. Even with our closest friends, many Gen Xers that I know struggle with staying in touch with those close friends because of blah, 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 blah. Gen X has learned to always prepare for the negative sides of every relationship in their lives, from intimate to friendly to work relationships. Each of these movies hit so hard and scared the generation so severely that it left many unable to trust the happy. We were always waiting for the rug to be pulled out from underneath us. The music Gen X grew up with further contributed to this pessimistic vibe in a lot of ways as well. For example, REM's song, It's the End of the World as We Know It. This was a big song for Gen X, and it is essentially about feeling a lack of care when everything is falling apart. To me, it's always felt like this song is basically about giving up on fighting and on hoping for better. Instead, it was about just being... That song could have fit for the greatest generation. It could have fit with the boomers who are dealing with the, I don't know, Cuban Missile Crisis, the 80s where we were at the height of the Cold War and there's the potential of, I don't know, nuclear Armageddon at like any fucking moment, which is why everybody maxed out their credit cards and just spent like crazy because, hey, you don't know when the bomb's going to drop, man. But no, that song basically could have covered 2 generations prior. Fuck, it could have also covered what, the silent generation, who was it that fought in World War I, where it literally was the end of the world over in Europe, right? If we could go on a time machine back to Verdun, that would probably look like the epitome of what everyone thought was the end of the world. All of which further added to overall wavering optimism of Gen X. Rage Against the Machine, Smashing Pumpkins, The Cure, Pearl Jam, etc. The list goes on. Many of these artists graced Gen X with songs that define the generation with words of distrust, struggle, and sadness. Most artists tend to write about these things, and that is where the connection comes from their listeners to them. I mean, we're not talking about WAP or any of these stupid ass songs that are out today. We're talking about like actual good songwriting ability. It's usually not happy-go-lucky, and you know when a band is doing well because the album that made them big best example. Okay. Best example I can come up with, Creed. Okay, My Own Prison, first album, right? It's all about this dude being at the lowest point in his life. His family abandoned him. He got kicked out of college. He has no money, no opportunities. He doesn't know what the hell's going on with his life. That's the whole first album. Second album comes out, and it's all about, I now have money. I am happy. Everything is looking joyful and uplifting. I couldn't name you one good song on the second album. It's no wonder why many members of Gen X learned to embrace the darkness rather than accepting that there was something better. The domestic home situation and our social influences further added to this aspect. I think that is the majority, like trying to blame all this other shit like movies and songs. No, the reason those movies and songs were made during this generation is because that is what the generation was dealing with. Art was imitating life. It wasn't the other way around. It wasn't the movies were creating the situation in these people's lives. That is what the artists at the time were dealing with. Many members of Gen X learned to grow up faster than they should have for various reasons. Or, prior to World War II, going back to normal. We didn't even have teenagers until the 1950s. It was, you went to school, you grew the fuck up. You went to school, you grew up. Then all of a sudden in the 50s, it's like, I am a teenager now. I think I might get a job. I don't know. Many Gen X people experienced the stress of caring for siblings or younger family members when they were very young. We were also the confidants of adults in our lives because there seemed to be a lack of understanding that we were children. We were raised during times when war seemed to be constantly looming overhead. What? Desert Storm. Somalia, Black Hawk Down, war constantly be looming overhead. 9/11, 2001. Like, that was the early 2000s. The 90s, relatively peaceful. Bosnia, nobody gave a shit about Bosnia. A constant struggle between war and peace, revolution and change. Nope. Everything was always filled with uncertainty, and the lesson was not to trust anything. Only if you watch The X-Files. I don't know what this person is referring to. Clearly, they were not around during the 80s or 90s. From our movies and music to our domestic and social societal influences, Gen X has been heavily programmed with the idea that there is no true happily ever after ending. Look at the divorce rate. We learn that when we trust we love someone, they will eventually hurt or betray us. We were encouraged with the mindset that casual intimacy, violence, and drug use were acceptable ways to cope with negative situations and emotions as we experience them. What is it Wags said in Billions? I thought I had the perfect trifecta. Women, drugs, and booze. Non-stop eternal zen. It all backfired on him. Being raised with these concepts from childhood is likely a big reason for the generational hex that seems to loom overhead with a lot of Gen Xers. The inability to truly let your guard down and trust that things will things will work out has weighed heavily on Gen X. We continually find ourselves lacking the true ability to believe things will work out, because they hardly ever do. Gen X has been taught to live preparing for the negative. No one's supposed to know about that bunker. Rather than how to embrace the positive. The positive, I have a full bunker. As we continue to get older, maybe we will start to break this curse of constant pessimism, but the negative societal influence is weighing heavily on many of us at this time. Only time will tell if Gen X can break free from the constant flight or fight, there it is backwards again, lifestyle that has left us running on empty, and learn to embrace a chance at happily ever after. Dude, stop selling the lie, okay? We learned that fairy tales were children's stories a long time ago. So, who is this person? Luna Verity is a freelance writer who enjoys writing about personal and societal subjects, blah, blah, blah. Free time on Medium, vocal.media. She's been focused on her writing after leaving the corporate accounting world last year. She has done some contributing work with Collider and BuzzFeed as well. Unless it was BuzzFeed 15 years ago, nothing notable. Because there was a time when BuzzFeed was actual journalism. But no, I'm guessing, God, I wish I could look up this chick. I'm taking a guess here that this person is not a member of Gen X and is just kind of pulling a lot of this from the rectum, because yeah, the whole movie and music, total disregard for the lives of the latchkey kids who created the artists that made the movies and the music, the lives that they lived in order to create such things. It's not that stuff influenced people's lives and made them the way that they are. No, we embraced it because it symbolized the lives that we were already living. So anyways, Gen X people like me. Are you? Are you, Luna? And now we're just suspicious of everything. Didn't bring up the X-Files at all. You had a great opportunity there with the title of your article, and you didn't even bring up the X-Files. Trust no one. Sums it up right there. Greatest show for Gen X. Keep on typing.